This is part 4 and the final part of the series that I've been doing throughout the year of highlighting more independent, smaller releases, movies that didn't necessarily make it to theaters and were kind of overshadowed by those who did have theatrical releases. In my opinion, some of the best horror movies of the year typically are these smaller independent movies. Maybe don't have the biggest budgets, but they really focus on character-driven or stories and great scripts and good horror elements and things like that versus, you know, what I call the big box movies like Blumhouse and things. There's nothing wrong with that. And of course, we've had fantastic movies in the theaters as well. But I think it's fun to focus on some smaller ones that maybe you haven't seen this year. Let me know if you've watched any of them from the previous recommendations, because I would love to know if you actually ended up liking them. In this video, I'm going to say some of the best. I'm not even exaggerating. I gave some 5 stars here. Now, to be fair, in this video in particular, it's kind of more on the thriller side. There are definitely horror elements, but I think there's an argument there that these lean a little bit more thriller. However, horror is a big umbrella term, so I feel like including them, and I think with the right audience, they are horror movies. But that being said, none will be like so scary that they'll keep you up at night or anything like that. But even if they did, luckily I'm working with Ozlo Sleep on this video today. So Ozlo sleepbuds are science-backed earbuds that comfortably block out sleep disrupting sounds while also being able to stream whatever it is you want to listen to. They do have sleep sounds in their app that I'm a huge fan of. As you know, I've worked with them in the past and have been using them ever since, and I love them. They fit so comfortably within the ear. They are made of silicone, like all the parts that are inserted into your ear are silicone, so they're extremely comfortable even for side sleepers like myself, because nothing is sticking out of your ear. As you can see, it is flat, so comfortable. They also have 4 different sizes as well of the silicone. Now, I'm someone who very much treasures high quality sleep as someone with a child who doesn't get enough sleep. Even just last night, sleep deprived, you know, it's just still ongoing. She's 2, but you know, it just, life happens. But this makes sure that the sleep that I do achieve is really, really great quality because it does block out all those sleep disrupting sounds. Now, of course, these are fantastic for sleeping, but I also personally love to use them to block out the world a little bit. Okay, we all need a little bit of a break. I get very overstimulated very easily. This, in combination with a weighted blanket, I just think they're great earbuds for all of your listening needs, not just for sleeping, because they are so comfortable. So things like audiobooks, podcasts, music. They also have biometric sensing built in, so they can sense when you actually fall asleep, and it will transition anything that you were watching or listening to one of their sleep sounds, so you don't like abruptly wake up or anything. And they can block out sound for up to 10 hours, so they will last you all night long. So thanks again to Ozlo Sleep for partnering with me on this video. If you want to get the best sleep of your life, make sure to click the link in the description down below or scan the QR code here on the screen and use my code PBH to get $10 off your own Ozlo Sleep earbuds. Let's get started with the first recommendation for this video, possibly a movie that you might have looked over or missed. This was a Shudder release. I think it's a Shudder exclusive, and it is called Mads. 18-year-old Romain has just graduated and makes a stop at his dealer's place to try a new pill. As he heads off to a party, he sees an injured woman on the side of the road and decides to help her. When she gets in his car, she suddenly smashes her own head against the dashboard, bleeding out. This is a movie that is shot in one take, not literally, and you can kind of tell when it gets really dark where they probably cut, because you have to cut when you shoot a movie in one long take. I don't think they ever really do that. Granted, they are extremely long takes. They do film in long takes, which is very impressive. But sometimes the one-shot thing can be a little bit gimmicky. I think it's cool when it first came out. However, I do really enjoy that aspect in this movie in particular because of the simplistic kind of storyline and who we're following, and the fact that we do switch characters within this. I think it's really impressive to film these shots in really, really long takes. I mean, it's impressive for the performances alone. Like, the actors have to carry this movie and perform for a long, long shot. To me, this movie feels like an adventure story. We're going along for the ride. We don't know what's happening, much like our characters don't know what's happening. Obviously, this is like a drug-induced movie. These are so effective for me personally. Things like shrooms and climax, anything where people have altered states, there's hallucinations, really, really bother me because that's one of my biggest fears is like taking drugs and hallucinating and then never coming back, never recovering from that, which is why I'll never do hallucinogens. But in this movie, we are always moving. We are constantly go, go, go. This is like the shortest hour and 26 minutes of your entire life. It's a short film in general, but the fact that it just is so fast paced, it makes it so exciting to watch. So it has that like action, I don't even want to say action, but like that adventure kind of feeling within the movie with these horror elements at play. I think it's such a cool and unique movie. Now, I do think this is a super unique take for its kind of movie. It does fit into a subgenre of horror, but I'm gonna leave that for you to discover on your own because the whole time I was like, is that what that is? Is this going to this place? And the fact that I never really knew and it wasn't really confirmed until towards, you know, the end-ish, I thought that was really fun because like you are kind of guessing at what is actually happening here. Maybe you could already guess based on the premise and everything, but I find it to be a really, really cool take on it, and I loved this movie. I loved everything from the fast pace, the performances. I thought the story was great as far as like who we're following, and it felt very believable and like disturbing. It's an easy movie to put on and to watch. It's not too dreary or too heavy or emotional or drama. It's just like go, go, go the whole time. So it's a really nice fast-paced short movie. Next up, we have my favorite movie in this video and one of my favorite movies of the entire year. I should mention also Mads is a French film and this next movie is a French-Canadian film. So they're both in French, just one's from like in Quebec City. It's set in Quebec City. And that is Red Rooms. Now this is a video on demand situation, so I did rent this. And this is listed as a 2023 movie. However, a lot of countries got this movie before the United States did. So this was released in Canada in 2023 and it did a lot of film festivals in a lot of different countries throughout 2023 and 2024. It was released in France in January of 2024 and then finally in the US in September of this year. So that's why I'm counting it as a 2024 movie, but technically it was elsewhere in the world earlier this year in January, but also last year as well. Kellyanne is obsessed with the high-profile case of a serial killer and reality blurs with her morbid fantasies. She goes down a dark path to get the missing video of the murder of a young girl to whom Kellyanne bears a disturbing resemblance. This is more of a slow burn thriller, but it is one of the most exciting, entertaining, slow burn movies I have ever seen. I could not stop watching this. I was so invested. It was so interesting. I actually stayed up to finish this in one sitting, which is not really how I watch a lot of movies these days, not gonna lie. I feel like it was such like a simplistic plot. It has some commentary on that like true crime fandom, which I really enjoy. I just think that was a really interesting play with some of the side characters in this movie as well, and including that commentary on the true crime community. And even though it's simple, the way it is done is there was so much tension throughout this movie. That's why I was so enthralled by like every single scene. I was just like hanging on every word that they were saying, every action of what was happening. Another movie that's really similar is a movie called Swallow with Haley Bennett, which is, if you liked that one, you definitely like Red Rooms and vice versa. We have this eccentric main character who is slowly, progressively unraveling and kind of losing their touch with reality and losing their mind. And I love a story like that. Another one that's kind of similar also is The Novice with Isabel Fuhrman. I highly recommend that as well. But I love these kind of like slower paced, character focused movies where we're so invested in their lives and like what they're gonna do next because we can tell that they are unraveling and that they're not making great choices, right? There are some extremely chilling and eerie scenes. I don't think this movie necessarily leans horror. I was really nervous in the beginning when they did the courtroom scene that they were gonna show the videos of these young girls. The content itself is kind of disturbing, like the discussions of the content because the victims are teenage girls. but they don't actually push it. They don't push the boundaries. We see very, very little, and it's kind of obscured. I think that was a really smart choice because I'm not gonna lie, French cinema likes to push the boundaries a little bit, so I was nervous that they were gonna go the extreme route and disturb us visually. Instead, they had these chilling scenes, just visuals that made your skin crawl, that were so creepy. Like, creepy is the best word for this movie. It just makes you feel uneasy while you're watching this, and I loved every single second of it. I gave it 5 stars and wouldn't change a thing about this movie. I thought it was perfection. Next up, we have a movie that is not as good, but I wanted to include it anyway, and that is Don't Move, which is streaming on Netflix. When a killer injects her with a paralytic agent, a woman must run, fight, and hide before her body completely shuts down. This has an interesting premise that I don't think was executed great. Because of the premise, it feels more like a short story than a full-length feature film, because I feel like it drags out a little bit, and given the concept, I find it to be pretty predictable. For some reason, while watching this, I never really felt tension, which you would think she is paralyzed. Like, there's going to be tension. There's this drug coursing through her. She doesn't know what it is, but she knows it paralyzes her. There should be tension while this man is hunting her in the woods. But I didn't feel any of that. For some reason, I was like, she'll be fine. Like, I just knew that, you know? And with a thriller like this, you need that tension. And I don't know why. I can't pinpoint exactly why I didn't feel stressed out. This kind of reminds me of like a popcorn thriller novel, something that a Riley Sager would write, or Lucy Foley, or Ruth Ware. Just something that's a little bit more like popcorny, that's not the greatest execution, but it has an interesting and entertaining story. So if you're typically a fan of those kind of books, I think you'd like the story of Don't Move. But for a horror movie or thriller movie in itself, I just don't think it was fantastic. It didn't blow me away. I left wanting more. I wanted more from this story. One thing I did enjoy is the grief aspect and the grief angle and perspective on that, especially in the beginning. I really like those conversations as someone who can relate to that currently. But if I wasn't going through that, maybe it wouldn't resonate as much. I wanted them to do something a little bit more unexpected and a little bit more entertaining. It didn't have like a ton of entertainment value. But the premise was interesting. Like, the concept is cool, but it didn't wow me. It's nothing really special about this movie. Lastly, we have The Platform 2 streaming on Netflix. Now, of course, if you're a fan of The Platform, the original, you probably knew there was a sequel already. If you haven't seen the original Platform, watch both. Watch both The Platform and The Platform 2. After a mysterious leader imposes his law in a brutal system of vertical cells, a new arrival battles against a dubious food distribution method. I honestly didn't expect much from the sequel for The Platform, because it's like, how do you execute that twice? How are you going to do the same thing 2 times and have it have the same kind of impact? Because I absolutely love the original Platform. I think it's really gross in a good way. It has social commentary. It's really interesting characters that we are invested in. It was just like a weird story, a weird dystopia. And I love a good dystopian story. So I was like, how are they going to do that again? Is it going to be like just repeated, just with new characters? Because it is with new characters completely. But I really enjoyed this one. Not as much as the first one. I think the first one had a bigger impact overall because it was like the first one to do it. And the second one does have similar social commentary, but they do change it. There are some new things involved that include different social commentaries, and that's for you to discover. I'm not going to spoil anything. It still kept the same like elements of surprise and the same like level of disturbing stuff going on. Honestly, this one bothered me a little bit more because some of the characters were female, and I feel like our lead is female, and I feel like that pushes it a little bit more, because the imagination typically is worse than what we're seeing on screen, and you can only imagine. So it does get dark and disturbing, and to me pushed it a little bit more than the first one. And I do like where they went with the ending. I feel like the endings of these movies are where the conversation really lies. We're not here to really get into all of that and get into spoilers, but as you know, they get weird. They push the social commentary further, they get very philosophical, and they get strange. And it's not going to be for everybody because a lot of the movie is pretty straightforward. It's a commentary wrapped up in a nice little dystopian bow at the end of the day, so you're gonna get kind of a weird ending as an exclamation mark, you know? It still has that classism, equality concept, social allegory, but there's some unique twists to it. And overall, I was satisfied with my viewing experience of the platform too. I feel like they did do things a little bit differently. It didn't feel like just a rinse and repeat version of the original platform. So I'd say it's worth a watch if maybe you decided you weren't really interested because you thought it was going to be the same thing. I'd say watch it. Also, special kind of reveal in the end that makes you be like, oh. So those are 4 more horror thriller movies that maybe you didn't see so far this year. I know we're all getting caught up on everything that came out this year. I've tried my best. But yeah, let me know if you end up watching any of these, or if you have seen them, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.